I know that in the future we won't need translators, because we'll all speak the same language. What do you think they say in the Golden Age? What do they talk about? Not much. Not much, right? They don't need to decide much. I think the biggest decision is where to have the picnic, right? That's still getting arranged here. It's okay? Yeah, okay. He's given the green signal. I was remembering today how recently I was in Malaysia, and of course the main number of BKs in Malaysia they speak Tamil. And there's a few Chinese in Gyan. Not many Malays, but the great majority of Brahmins, BKs in Malaysia, they are Tamil speakers. And I was remembering how I was conducting a training in their big retreat centre. They've got a huge retreat centre near the airport at Kuala Lumpur. And there were groups from many different countries from Southeast Asia. And besides the Malaysians, people from Thailand and from Indonesia, Korea, Philippines, Vietnam, and so on. Many countries. And I was just watching the groups. And they were interacting with each other. And I didn't understand anything, because they were in their language groups. So one group is speaking Korean, another group speaking Filipino, and another group speaking Tamil. Just like that, And I was thinking, I don't understand anything they're saying, but I can understand their feelings. Because they were sharing, when they were saying, I'm sharing from my heart, they'll make this sort of gesture, right? And then they're trying to make it a point, so they're making their hand do this and like that and like this and like that. Just the language of the hands was the same language. So the feelings that were coming from the heart were the same feelings, even though at the surface level these different words are coming out. They're talking about the same things. They're all teachers, actually, of the Raja Yoga course. And even one sister came up to me and said, this is your book in Tamil. I said, what do you mean? Which book? And she said, I've got a New Beginnings book. We made it into Tamil. I said, oh, that's nice. So, and then they showed me around, and of course I can't read the writing. It looks like jalebi, But the feelings that we have are the same feelings, right? Even if we don't understand each other. So in the Golden Age, it didn't have a problem. And I really feel also that it's connected with this, it's about meaning. If we all spoke the same language, there'd be much less conflict in the world. And I'll give you one example. You probably don't know about it because it's an example from Christianity. But Jesus, and therefore Christ, when he came down, he spoke a language called Aramaic. He didn't speak Hebrew. He didn't speak Greek, or Latin. The local language was Aramaic. And the word God in Aramaic, you know what it is? Allah. Allah. So the word that Jesus used to call God was Allah. And then the word that the Hebrews used to call God was Eloha or Elohim. And in Arabic, Al means the, and Allah then is the one, the unique one, the only one God. And we've forgotten that. So probably the thing that matters most is to understand the one and understand our connection with the one. Both in the Jewish tradition, they say, like we learn in our courses, that Abraham established Islam, but in fact the world thinks that it was Muhammad. But it's true, Abraham had 2 sons, and one of them was called, because his wife couldn't have a baby, he used his wife's maid to create, because he had to have a son to carry on the traditions. So his wife's maid gave birth to a son called Ishmael. And later on, miracle, and this is the sorts of things that you read in the scriptures, you can't believe it really, but she was about 100 years old and she gave birth, 100 years old, to another son called Isaac. And then in this conversation, God wanted him to make the supreme sacrifice. He wanted him to sacrifice his son. And Abraham didn't think about it twice. If God's telling me to do something, I must do it. But at the last moment he said, no, I don't. I just wanted to test your surrender. I just wanted to test your surrender. You can sacrifice a sheep. Don't need to sacrifice your son. So what happened when his son was born and grew up? There was a little bit of, struggle between the 2 sons. And so in the end, he had to banish the mother of the first son, Ishmael, and banish also Ishmael. And they were sent off to a part of the world which is near Mecca. And it was actually his son, and through the different visits from his father, who was Abraham, they established the tradition of the annual pilgrimage. Was Abraham who built the Kaaba and put that Shiva Lingam in the corner, right? And he established through his son the annual pilgrimage. And on the other side is Isaac. His grandson was called Judah. And through Judah, the Jewish tradition was born. And they fight so much, right? Yeah. Israelis and Palestinians and the Arabs and the Arab world and the Christians also. They all come from that same background. And they had one word for God, Allah or Eloha in Hebrew. So I was just thinking, if people could speak the same language, there would be less conflict. Because then they would realize that they're talking about the same things. But because of the split, some people went this way, some people went that way, some people went another way, like we see in the tree. At the end of that period where we were unified, there was, a big shaking. It's not that the souls, it's not that matter gained power. It's the souls that lost power, and like we were above matter and we could, control the elements naturally. But with time our power became less and less, and it reached the time at the end of the Silver Age when there was not enough, and that was like a big shake. The souls didn't have the power anymore over matter. Matter started to have power over the souls. And then from then on it was just falling and falling and falling. And we spread out, some people went one way, some people went another way, some people ended up in what's now Africa, some people ended up in what's now Australia, some people ended up in what's now America, It was a big split. And then we start to develop differently. We forget that we are one humanity, and we become many. We forget there's the one religion becomes many religions, the one language becomes many languages, the one culture becomes, this one and the other. And we end up at the end of the Iron Age, we can't even talk to each other. We can't even understand each other. Isn't it? So, mostly they try to say that English is the only the best common language that people need to learn, but English is very difficult to learn, right? If it's your second language, right? So who here English is their first language? Just a few. And who English is their second language? Everyone. You had to learn it, right? You come to a country where they speak English, you have to go to the supermarket, right? And you have to speak. So this thing of what are the things that matter. The things that matter are the basic things. The rest are details. And even in our own efforts, what matters? Two things. Gyan and yoga, right? They are like two inputs, the knowledge and the connection with the self and God. They're the two inputs. And the two outputs are dharana and service, right? The virtues and the service of others. So if I don't have the input, I won't have the output. Yeah? If I don't have the gasoline, the motor doesn't run. So I need to understand things deeply. Everything that happens has a meaning. Everything that happens has a meaning. But on the other side, I need power to put that meaning into practice. So if something's very complex, right? Actually, it's only complex on the surface because underneath there are just a few basic ingredients. Any situation, first of all, there's a connection between souls and matter, and souls and other souls, right? And there's also maybe a connection between the soul and God. So those are the three things, actually four things. Me with God, how is that going? Me with myself, how does that go? Me with other souls, and me with matter. Those four things are in every single situation. There's no situation that has not a mixture of those four things. Like the state of the body, for example, is the relationship between the soul and matter. If there's suffering, it's because maybe I haven't used my body properly. I've used my body to do not so great things, and therefore I have to suffer through the body. So any situation, there's some karmic process going on, right? This morning I shared with the class in what's the name of the place? Tagore Center. That Maya is actually the wrong things that we've done in the past, that we've done against ourselves and against other people, or against matter. We've misused matter, we've misused the relationship, or we've misused ourselves. And so that comes up in the form of a karmic account, right? So any karmic account will involve, because it's the visible form of vices, right? You could say that karmic accounts are actually sanskaric accounts, right? Because they are the visible form of sanskars. Something happened, and that's been recorded in my relationship with others and with matter, and so there's an account. So any karmic account involves one or two or all of the vices. Yeah? And that's important to understand, because if my vices are still active, the karmic accounts will continue. So I have to understand that there is a connection between how I was in the past and what's happening. But that's only half of the understanding, because if I change my relationship with people and things in the present, then the future will be different. It will not be a continuation of the same past. But if I don't do anything, if I don't change any of my understanding, the things continue. Everything will continue. I've seen people overcome very severe karmic accounts through understanding and through yoga. But I've seen others make their karmic accounts worse because they don't understand and they don't have the connection with God, so it doesn't work. So these are the sorts of things that matter. Focus on the few things that matter. Focus on the few things that are important. And, I've used for myself a sort of a tool which has helped tremendously, even when I was working as a consultant. I've got a few consulting clients still, but I've practically given up because the last few years I've been totally concentrated on Brahma Kumari's work. It's become too complex. But I use, and I still use, a tool which is very useful. It's we started to use this in our Lokik consulting work in very complex situations. It's like something that makes sense of complex arrangements. So focus is the first thing. It means I have to see those few things that matter. The other thing is will, which is like I have to want what I see. And the third thing is capacity. So if I'm able to do something, I know what I want, I really want that, and I'm able to do it, then I'll be able to do it. But let's say I don't have focus, I don't really know what's there in front of me, everything's still very confusing, relatives, friends, work, all of that equation is confusing. But I really want to do something. I'm able to do something because I know my capacity, but I just don't know what. So that's like a loose hose. You ever seen a water hose? that's been turned on, but no one's holding it, what happens? What happens? It just goes all over. Have you seen that? A loose hose. So if I really don't have focus, my life is like a loose hose. I'm just using my thinking, using my energy, and not going anywhere really. So going all over the place. So there's also a story in the English language called Alice in Wonderland. And in a particular, Alice sort of gets lost, right? She falls down a hole, and on the other side of the hole there's this amazing sort of land. And there's some films have been made about this. It's a very popular story in the English language. And you know something, a curious thing, part of the book, that book, written by Lewis Carroll, was written in Oxford Retreat Centre. Because he lived near there, and he went there, and he used to go there and write. So there's a part of the story where Alice is lost. She's trying to find her way out of this strange land, and she meets a cat, a big cat. And she asks the cat, I guess it's a children's story, right? So in children's story, people can talk to cats, right? So she asks the cat, can you show me where to go? Can you show me the way? And the cat asks, where do you want to go? And she says, I don't know. And he said a very famous phrase, if you don't know where you're going, any way will do. If you don't know where you're going, any way will do. And there's a lot of things connected with that. If you try to find a path that has no obstacles, it will not lead anywhere. Because obstacles only exist because you have an objective, because you have a focus. Because you're focused on that, things will arrange themselves to test your ability to get there. But if you have no focus, you probably won't face many obstacles either. But as soon as you have focus, yes, obstacles will also show up. So we should be happy if we have obstacles, right? Because they show us that we're on a journey to somewhere. Now the second aspect, if I have focus, I know what I want. I have will, means I want it. I'm motivated. But I don't have the capacity, that becomes like an exercise bicycle. A lot of pedaling, a lot of movement, a lot of sweat, but no forward movement. Have you seen an exercise bicycle? A person is sort of, pedaling but not going anywhere. Is stuck on the ground. So have you ever had the feeling that you're doing a lot of effort and not getting anywhere? Yeah? Has that ever happened? You're doing a lot of effort, using a lot of energy, but you're still in the same place? It's because the wheels are not on the ground. Yeah? So you've got the will, you've got the focus, but you don't have the ability. And it's also possible that you have the focus, you have the ability, but you don't have the will, not motivated. So you're very capable, very knowledgeable, but no motivation. So that if you know things, but you're not doing anything, do you know people who who criticize everything but don't do anything? Have you met people like that? Yeah? They criticize but they don't do, they don't help. They just stay on the side criticizing, throwing rocks. If I need to, if I become critical, probably it's because I'm not doing anything. I'm not doing the right thing, certainly. So if I criticize people, I look for defects, I'm not doing the right effort. Yeah. So if I want to really do something, I have to have those three things: focus, will, and capability. Those three things will help me to get through anything. It all starts off with meaning. It all starts off with, what is this that's happening in front of me? What are the main ingredients here? And we can reduce any situation to a few facts. We are souls. Every soul has their own part. I have my part. I can't control anyone else's part. Let me do my part in the best possible way. Then everyone's involved in their own process. Everyone has a different degree of understanding, a different degree of effort, a different degree of power. I'm not the judge, so why should I get upset by someone else's part? And that requires me to be a detached observer using the third eye. If I want to see something, let me observe it using the third eye. Then I will understand what really is going on. I will understand the few things that matter. In any situation, it could be the craziest situation you can imagine. I'll give an example. I was giving a talk in Sao Paulo, which is my base in Brazil. And a lady came up to me and she said, my husband, no hope for him. His behavior is like this and like this and like this. And so she started to talk about all of his defects. He's really going to hell, right? She's no hope for him. And I've tried to talk to him hundreds of times. I've tried to talk to him. He does not listen to me. And I asked her hundreds of times, really? She said, no, only 5. But when you're upset, you exaggerate, right? Hundreds of times I've tried to talk to him. No, not hundreds of times, just 5 times. And I asked her, you just told a lot of his defects, what he does. Does he have any virtues? And she said, well, let me think. I've been married to him for 30 years. Let me think, And it looked very clear that she had not thought of his virtues for a long time. Just the defects. He's like this, and he's like this, and he's like this, and he's like this, and he doesn't listen to me, and he doesn't understand me, and he goes out, and I don't know where he goes. I don't know what he's doing. He doesn't tell me. Doesn't communicate. And his attitude, he's sometimes very aggressive, very bad, he's very sort of doesn't speak. He's quiet all the time and sort of just like in an angry mood or bad mood. So she just continued to talk about his defects, one after the other. And I said, wait a minute. Since your communication is not so great, if you tried to talk to him and he doesn't listen, it could be the way you're communicating with him. She said, yeah, probably, could be. Secondly, if he, let's say your husband, I don't know who her husband was, but let's say he's he's been going to our meditation center and trying to improve. Would he tell you that he's going to the meditation center? He said, probably not. He would be embarrassed to tell me. So let's say he's really making an effort to improve himself. Do you think that you're thinking about his defects all the time without stop? He's like this, he's like this, he's like this. Is that helping him or making it more difficult for him? What did she say? What do you think? Yes? She said, yes, I think so. So I gave her an image that I don't think she would ever forget. You know, Brazil is a Catholic country, and 90% of the people are Catholics. And maybe the Protestants, they cremate their dead, but the Catholics bury the dead. And so I told her, look, imagine you said that your husband's going to hell, right? So imagine he's already dead, right? And he's trying to come back to life. And he's lying there in the coffin, and he's trying to get up again. And you know where you were sitting? I said, you're sitting on the lid. You're making it more difficult for him to get out and get up. And she said, oh, that's a problem, If you want to help someone, I said, the worst thing you can do is to think about their defects and make a big deal of them. So what will save someone is not their defects, it's their virtues. So if you think about, those virtues, even if he's got 1 and 100 defects, that one virtue will help him. And he's got more than 1, right? And she said, yeah, he's got quite a few, now that I think about it. So start to think about him in an improved state. That's the only thing you can do to help him. You can't change him. You can't control him. You can't change his part. And you think about it, why do you get upset by his defects? Because probably you have them yourself. And she said, oh, really? Yes. If you didn't recognize, if you didn't have them, you wouldn't recognize them either. And I remembered, after that, and she went away quite happy that, I'm going to make some effort now. I said, every time you think of him with virtues. That's the only way you're going to help him. You think about your behavior with children who don't. Let's say you're making this effort and you have children. Who has children here? Mostly everyone, yeah? And so maybe at some point you tried to inspire them to follow the spiritual path and they didn't, right? You can't change them. You can't. What you can do is just create healthy conditions in which they can grow. That's it. You can't do any more than that. And I remember I was in Hungary once. And Hungarian writing is the same as Roman letters, the same as English. The letters are the same, A, B, C, D, E, like that. But you can't understand anything, right? That's just words. So you can understand the letters, but you can't understand what they mean. So let's say I will only understand Hungarian if I've learned Hungarian, right? I will only recognize vices if I've learnt the vices myself. So if I speak vice language, I will recognize vices in others. If I don't speak vice language, I won't. So that's why we get upset with people. You know why what happens when someone upsets us? Actually, I'm using that person to upset myself. I'm using the situation. There's something that I have to suffer. You know, it's not that the other person jumped inside my head and created my thoughts. So I use the information to create suffering for myself. And it's a very subtle thing, you know. So let's be more generous with people. Let's say someone is angry, right? An angry person. Do you know any angry people? Yeah? Do you know any angry people? Do you know any arrogant people? Yeah? So how do you know that they're arrogant and angry? But, you know, okay. But let's say someone has anger. How many times has that soul had anger? Over how many births has that sanskar developed, right? Has that characteristic developed? How many times in 63 births, let's say, have you been angry? Quite a few times, right? Countless times, actually. Countless, thousands, millions maybe. And you think that anger is something that's just there now? No. It's been around. So if I understand, if I have a bigger vision of people, and this helps me really, if I open my vision and allow that person to have a past and a future, right? And I can see that thing in the context, then it's not so big. But if I reduce my vision, the thing becomes big. If I increase my vision, the thing becomes small. And so someone with anger, let's say something, it's because of some frustration, for sure. That soul is not happy with themselves. If they were perfectly satisfied, they would not get angry. Yeah? So they get angry because of something that's in the soul. It's the relationship or some struggle going on between them and a situation, or between them and a relationship, but it's a long-term thing. So I give a bit of past and a bit of future, I can understand the present. And I can be more compassionate. So understanding the basic ingredients, the things that matter, helps me to remain calm. When I don't understand, then I become upset. Easy like that. But I need also power. I need also power to be okay, you know, to be quite rational and to act properly. I need power. So it's not enough to understand something, I have to have the power to be like that. And I've been in many situations in my life where I was able to just immediately understand something and adjust myself. It didn't matter what was going on, I could just adjust, and that was it. I was in once I was in a very serious bus accident. I'd gone to a town where we had a centre in Brazil, and there's no airport in this town, so I had to get a bus. It was an 8-hour bus ride from that town back to Sao Paulo. And it was like night time, so I got on the bus about 9:30, 10 o'clock in the evening. And about 2 in the morning, the bus crashed. It was a very good highway, like 2-lane highway. And the bus must have been going along at 120 kilometres per hour or more. It because it was 2 in the morning, it was a straight road, and the bus crashed into the back of a sugar cane truck, because the cane was hanging over the back, didn't see the back lights and smashed into it, and then rolled a few times and ended up in a ditch, the bus, and I was on the bus. Fortunately, I had 2 seats, so I was on my side actually when the bus crashed. And I was just, my thinking, and because we meditate a lot, we have some power that's accumulated, and again, this understanding of situation. So when those 2 things are together, understanding and spiritual power, then your reaction to something that's completely unexpected is very good. Now, this has happened many times in my life, different situations, but in this case, I was there, when the bus crashed, my thinking was like this: oh, the bus has crashed. Oh, the bus is now rolling. Now, the bus has now stopped. People are screaming. Because mostly people smash their face on the seat in front of them. They didn't have seat belts in those days. It was a time there were no cell phones even, so. And then I was listening to people screaming and moaning, and there were actually quite a few dead people. They died immediately. The only thing that happened to me was I scratched my knee. So there was a bit of blood on my knee, that was it. So the bus is down in the ditch and I'm smelling petrol. And I said, let me see what I can do. So I smashed out the window, the safety window, you have to smash it out. And I got out of the bus, went around to the driver, he was dead. The front of the bus was just crushed. And then I went back in and started to take people out because I was afraid the bus would explode. But I was the only one on my feet. And then I went up to the highway and stopped cars, right? And many cars stopped, and then one person went off to the next road service station to call the fire brigade or whatever, the ambulance, the police. And I stayed there just helping people, And not in one moment did I feel shock, right? They even say that the shock comes later, but it didn't come. So when everything was sorted out, and it was a couple of hours actually, a few hours before they sorted, then I asked one of the people who'd stopped, can you take me to Sao Paulo? Because, he said, what do you mean? What are you doing here? I said, I was on the bus. And he said, no, that's not possible. Not possible. You saw the wreckage, it was terrible, But you were on that bus? And I said, yeah. And I went there, got my bag, right? And he took me to Sao Paulo. But let me tell you, that sort of immediate reaction, where you don't go into a state of panic, it's only because the practice of understanding and the practice of meditation has given me enough, stamina, understanding, reaction to make that okay, Most people lose their stage in such a situation, you could say. And I've had many such things happen to me. I was in the late 80s, there was a campaign by the IRA, the Irish Republican Army, and they were blowing up pubs and underground stations in London, the subway stations. And I remember because we had an office for the Global Cooperation for a Better World project in Baker Street, which is like downtown London. And I was on the train going there, and over the loudspeakers of the station, there was an announcement as the train came into Baker Street. We have received news that there is a bomb in this station. Please come out of the train calmly and move out to the street. You think that the people moved out calmly? We were just running over each other, treading over each other to get out. And I looked at the people running up the stairs. I said, I'm not going to... If the bomb explodes, it will explode. If it doesn't explode, it won't explode. But I'm not going to go into that confusion to get out of here. So I waited. I was remembering Baba, remembering, the connection. If this is the moment, but I'm not going to injure people or get injured in that craziness. People jumping over each other. I just remain in my connection. And of course nothing happened, right? It was a false alarm. So my touching was that it was a false alarm. So don't worry. That sort of thing? Nothing happened, so why worry? Don't imagine, what could have happened. Even on the bus, I could have been killed. I could, this was really dangerous. People got killed. Why didn't you get killed, That's useless thinking. It didn't happen. Finish. Why to think about something that did not happen? Why to imagine what could have been? And this is whole useless thinking, isn't it? If I had that, I would have done. If I had studied, I would have been a better job. If I didn't get married, I wouldn't have the problems that I have now, You did. Or you didn't, right? You didn't study, you didn't go, you didn't speak, you didn't see. Or you did see, you did study, you did. Whatever you did, now you're paying the consequences of those decisions. And they will not get better if you fight against what you've done in the past. It will not get better, it'll get worse. So if you're unhappy with your situation, it's your own fault, basically. You are to blame. But no one owns us except God. So why should I allow someone to own me? Yeah? That's the sort of thinking. So many situations like that have been there, where I could, see the few things that matter in the situation and change my reaction, change my, whatever I do in my reaction to things. So, anyone got any questions? No. Are you shy? Yeah, you've got one? Okay. Speak up so that he's filming at the back there, so you can speak up.
At the bus, if you think a negative thinking, is that what happens for me, or if I could have any injured, and like that, if you think like that, it will happen, or you could save or you couldn't save, if you're thinking negative, when the accident was happening.
If I had negative thinking when that accident happened, yeah, I'd probably, be... someone would have to carry me away.
If you don't think negative, that's why you save. And
That's right.
right? Yeah.
No, it's not just not thinking negative. It's like thinking what is real. What is real, and what is not real is not real.
If other people think, oh, I'm going to hurt, or I'm going to die, soon they are going to die or hurt or something.
Yeah. I've seen so many, people. In one of our meetings in Mount Abu, and this was in the late 90s, we had something called the Mount Abu Dialogues every year for a few years. And I remember a guy from California, he was a doctor, and he'd written a book. And his thesis was that people get sick reading about illnesses. People get sick reading about illnesses. And even if they got some symptom, they go onto Google now, oh, wow, I got that symptom. Wow, look at what they say. Oh, They make themselves more sick just reading about it, And people are scared because of things that they've heard. And we jump to conclusions. That's because we don't know what really matters. We jump to conclusions about people and things. I even this afternoon I gave this example. I was in a lawyer's office, right? And I told a story. If you've ever been to New York and gone out to our centre in Harmony House at Great Neck, you have to get on the Long Island Railroad, right? Long Island. You have to get on downtown at Penn Station, and it's about 10 stops away to get to Great Neck. 8 stops, I don't know how many. So this is a real story. It was about someone got on at Penn Station and he had 4 kids. And it was after work time, so people going home from work. And people going home from work on a train, they don't want to be bothered, right? They want to sit there, read their newspaper or read their do their emails or whatever. Or just sleep, right? After work. Is that right? They've had a long day, a hard day. They deserve to relax. So this guy gets on at Penn Station with 4 kids. And he's sort of very unhappy. And he sits down and sort of just moping and not very happy, very silent. And the kids just start running up and down the corridor and making mischief and making noise and bumping into people. And the other passengers, what do you think, how do you think they felt? What? They were irritated, right? And they started to say things like, can you not look after your kids, mister? Come on. Do something. We don't want to be bothered. We're getting irritated. So lots of people started to try to talk to him, and he didn't respond, right? He was just looking down at the floor and sad. Then finally a lady behind him, sort of with her umbrella on the seat, she said, "Sir, can you do something about these kids? They're becoming impossible." And he turned around and said, I don't really know what to do, because we're just coming from the hospital and their mother just died. And I don't know what to say to them. I haven't told them yet. They don't know that their mother's just died. 4 kids, right? And I'm lost, actually. And that lady who tried very angrily, she then told the other passengers what had happened. Do you know what they did? What do you think? They started to play with the kids. So when you don't know the full story, you're jumping to conclusions, right? You're not seeing what matters. You're seeing your own problems. In that case, people do not irritate us. We irritate ourselves. People do not provoke us, we provoke ourselves. People do not make us sad, we make ourselves sad using the information that we received. Because if I could understand and I had spiritual power, I would never get sad. Never. So that's how it helps. Yeah, what?
So what do you think about you focus on some few things that really doesn't matter?
You've forgotten a few things that really don't matter, yeah. Is that a question or a statement?
What will happen?
Huh?
What will happen?
Yeah. What will happen if I forget the few things that matter? Well, I get upset. If I remember the few things that do matter, I can arrange myself differently. Often we pay attention to things. Let's say I've got a white shirt, right? And there's a big black stain here. Everyone here will be looking at the black stain, right? And they probably wouldn't see the rest of the shirt. But if I put my hand here, maybe you think I've got a pain or something. You'd still be looking at my hand rather than, watching my... Let's say I'm giving the talk and my hand's on my head, right? I'm giving a great, I'm talking very, very nicely, but where is your attention going? You'll be thinking, why has he got his hand on his head, right? So this doesn't matter, right? But the attention goes to what doesn't matter. So often we're seeing the wrong things and making the wrong interpretations, and we're labeling people and things and situations. This is like this is like that, this person is like this person is like that. Yeah? But no one is what we think they are. So all of the people that we carry in our heads, they don't exist. Except, at least our version of people doesn't exist. The people see, they do exist, right? But not what I think of them. That's only in my own head. So it's something we have to understand. Let people be as they are. Even I shared this story today, maybe we can finish off with the story. There was a Zen monk, and he spent 5 years in silence, right? Meditating. 5 years, looking at a wall. And when he came back to the monastery, the other monks were very curious. What happened? How was your experience 5 years in silence? What happened? And he said, I have learnt that noses are vertical and eyebrows are horizontal. And they say, what do you mean? Explain yourself. You know what he did? What he was saying is that things are as they are, right? Everything is what it is. So why do I have to exaggerate something? Why did he say that? Why is that going on? Why is that person looking at me like this? Let people and things remain as they are. Try to see their reality independent of your opinion. You'll think less, you'll think better, you will not get upset, right? And you'll be free from, yeah?
So if we recognize anyone's vices, that means it's actually within ourselves,
Yeah.
regardless of what it is. Like, it doesn't matter what. Any vices at any moment, any second, doesn't matter what it is. It's actually within ourselves, no matter what.
Yeah, I mean, I can recognize it because that has a history in me also. Is there anyone free from the 5 vices? Hand up. Completely free from the vices? Hands up. Okay.
But at 100%, if you recognize the vice, would it be like maybe just 1 or 2%, or is it like just like how would you like?
No, you still, the after effects of those vices are still with you. That's why you get upset with Donald Trump, for example. You know, he's a bit sort of pedantic and so on, but you know, if you start to get upset with how people are, you know, everyone has a role to play in this world, even him. Do you think that everyone has a role to play except Donald Trump? No. He's got a bit of crazy behavior, but sometimes we're also a little bit crazy, right? Sometimes we say things just to make a point when it's not real. It's just a question of scale.
Yeah, so you could
So I've got 5% of that vice and someone's got 80%, I can still recognize it. It can still make me feel uncomfortable. It's a deep thing. Anyone else? Yeah?
So, can we ever reach a state of not recognizing vices individually?
Yeah, I think so. That's the karmatit state, right? But you know, the purity is there. Purity is when I don't recognize vices. I don't interact with vices anymore, and then I'm completely pure. And that's probably a little bit just before the destruction.
someone throws something at you and you just don't feel it, just walk it off. Like,
It depends, you know. It's like a state of equanimity. Why won't you get affected by praise or defamation? Because you're not looking for it. You feel okay in yourself. You know, that person is doing that. It's his problem, not my problem, you know. It's also not... If I make a case out of something, for sure I still have those vices.
Like Socrates.
Huh?
Like Socrates, his wife.
Socrates, yeah.
His wife was pouring dirty water on him.
Yeah, wife pouring dirty water on him. Yeah, so like if it's always better, always, to first try to understand rather than react.
so like for example, if someone comes and grabs my shirt and rips it, I gotta think about why they would do that instead of getting mad. Or something happened and they're sad or something.
Well, let's see. I remember Daddy Janki. They asked her, and there was a lot of violence in Brazil, and there still is actually. And they asked her in a TV interview, "What would you do if someone came up to you and robbed your purse?" Well, Daddy doesn't even have a purse, right? But yeah, she couldn't understand the question, and then when she finally understood the question, she said, with total conviction, "That would never happen to me. So why would I think about it? Don't even think about someone ripping your shirt off." Huh? It won't happen.
Someone told me when, I'm scared of snakes, but they never got bit by a snake or they never seen like one close.
That's it. People are scared of snakes. You know, the other day, just outside of the main house in our retreat centre, there was a rattlesnake, you know, just, you know, going across the way, a rattlesnake. And so some people really freaked out, right? Ah, rattlesnake! But one of the workers there, he just went, because it's very dangerous, right? And this one had 6 sort of rattles. So he killed it with a stick. Because he didn't want to, he works there, right? He doesn't want to get, before anyone said anything, actually. People were just rushing off, screaming, and he went across and hit it over the head. So you can have fantasies about snakes or spiders or, cockroaches or whatever, but it's here. Okay?